The first doctor told me I was having twins. The second doctor told me she wasn't sure what she was looking at. By the time the third doctor refused to look me in the eye, I already knew neither of them was right. There weren't babies inside me. There was one thing. It had 4 arms, 4 legs, and 1 heartbeat. My name is Mara Ellison, and 3 months before that ultrasound, I thought I was living the happiest year of my life. I was 29. I had a job I actually liked, designing interiors for restaurants and vacation homes around Asheville, North Carolina. I had a small house with too many plants, a dog that hated thunderstorms, and a fiancé who made coffee every morning before I woke up. Caleb Mercer and I had been together for almost 4 years. We were supposed to get married in October. Then I got pregnant. We moved the wedding to the following spring. Caleb said there was no reason to rush. We already have the important part, he told me. He put his hand on my stomach when he said it. At the time, I thought it was sweet. Now, when I remember that moment, I think about how carefully he placed his palm against me, almost like he was checking something, waiting for something, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The ultrasound happened on a Tuesday morning in May. I was 14 weeks pregnant. Caleb sat beside me while Dr. Evelyn Hart moved the probe across my stomach. The room was dim except for the monitor. I remember staring at the ceiling because I was nervous. Nothing had been wrong. Not exactly, but my pregnancy had felt strange from the beginning. I was hungry all the time, not normal pregnancy hunger. I'd wake up at 2 in the morning feeling as though I hadn't eaten in days. My stomach grew faster than it should have. Sometimes I felt movement even though everyone told me 14 weeks was too early to feel much. And every few nights, I woke with the same sensation, something dragging lightly across the inside of my abdomen. I'd convinced myself it was muscle spasms, gas, anything ordinary. Then Dr. Hart stopped moving the probe. "Oh," she said. Caleb squeezed my hand. "What?" Dr. Hart smiled at us. "Well, I think we found the explanation." She turned the monitor slightly. "Congratulations. It looks like you're having twins." Caleb actually laughed. "Twins?" I stared at the screen. I didn't laugh. I had no medical training. I couldn't tell you what a 14-week fetus was supposed to look like on an ultrasound. But something about that image was wrong. There was a head, a torso, then another shape partially behind it. Limbs overlapped everywhere. Caleb was already asking questions. Identical, fraternal. Could we tell the sexes yet? I interrupted him. Where's the other head? The room went quiet. Dr. Hart looked at the monitor again. It's probably the angle. Probably. The fetuses can overlap considerably at this stage. She moved the probe. The image shifted. For half a second I thought I saw it clearly. 1 head, 1 torso, 4 arms, 4 legs. Then it blurred again. I sat up slightly. "Can you check their heartbeats?" Dr. Hart smiled, but the smile was different now. "Of course." She adjusted the machine. A rapid heartbeat filled the room, strong, fast, alive. Caleb looked at me and grinned. Then Dr. Hart moved the probe. The heartbeat faded. She repositioned it. The same heartbeat returned. She moved again. Nothing. She tried for almost 2 minutes. Caleb finally asked, "Is something wrong?" Dr. Hart didn't answer immediately. She turned the volume down. "I'm only isolating 1 cardiac rhythm." What does that mean? It may mean nothing. Sometimes positioning makes it difficult to separate the heartbeats, but you can see to babies. She looked at the monitor. "I'd like to have you come back for a more detailed scan." My mouth had gone dry. "Doctor." She looked at me. "How many hearts do you see?" She didn't answer. That frightened me more than anything she could have said. That night I woke at 3:17. I know the exact time because the clock was glowing beside Caleb's empty side of the bed. I reached for him, cold sheets. Then something moved inside me. I froze. It wasn't a kick. It wasn't the fluttering sensation pregnancy websites described. This traveled from low on my right side, across my abdomen, then upward. 5 tiny points of pressure, like fingertips. I stopped breathing. The pressure disappeared, then returned on the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, dragging slowly beneath my skin. I threw the blanket off. My stomach looked normal. Then the skin below my ribs moved. Not much, barely an inch, but I saw it. A small ridge passed beneath the surface. I screamed. Caleb ran into the bedroom. He was wearing sweatpants and no shirt. Mara, I pointed at my stomach. Something moved. His face relaxed. That's good, isn't it? No. He came closer. The babies are moving. It's too early. Maybe twins move sooner. It's not twins. The words came out before I could stop them. Caleb stared at me. What? I looked toward the doorway. Where were you? Bathroom. The bathroom is right there. Our bedroom had an ensuite. He hesitated. I went downstairs for water. I noticed his feet. There was dirt on one heel, just a little, dark brown mud. Why are your feet dirty? He looked down, then laughed. I took Winston outside. Our dog was sleeping in the hallway. I could see him from the bed. Caleb followed my eyes. Something passed across his face. So quickly I almost missed it. Then he sat beside me. Mara, you're scared. I saw it move. I believe you. No, you don't. He put his hand on my stomach. The instant he touched me, the movement stopped, completely. Caleb smiled. See, I didn't, but something inside me had gone perfectly still, as if it recognized him. The next morning I sent the ultrasound picture to my best friend. Sienna Vale and I had met during our sophomore year of college. We had shared apartments, bad jobs, worse boyfriends, and enough embarrassing memories to destroy each other's lives. She was supposed to be my maid of honor. Usually she answered my texts within minutes. That morning she didn't respond for almost 3 hours. Then my phone rang. Mara, no hello. Yeah. Are you alone? I laughed. What? Is Caleb there? He's working. Are you sure? I looked toward the driveway. His truck was gone. Yes. Sienna was quiet. Then she asked, has he been giving you anything? What do you mean? Anything you eat or drink every day? Vitamins, supplements, tea. My eyes moved toward the kitchen. On the counter was a glass jar filled with dried herbs. Caleb had started making me tea about 6 weeks earlier. He said one of his clients recommended it for morning sickness. Sienna, stop drinking whatever he's giving you. What the hell are you talking about? I'm coming over. Why? Don't tell him. Sienna, but she'd already hung up. She arrived 40 minutes later carrying an old leather folder. She locked my front door behind her. That irritated me immediately. What is going on? Show me the ultrasound. I sent it to you. The original. I gave her the printout. She placed it on my dining table and stared. Her face lost color. Then she opened the folder. Inside were photocopied pages from an old book. The text looked handwritten. They were botanical drawings, symbols, and one illustration that made my stomach tighten. A woman lying on a table, her abdomen swollen. Above her was something resembling an infant, except it had many limbs, for arms, for legs. Lines extended from its fingers like threads. What is that? Sienna didn't answer. I read the handwritten caption beneath it. The Weaver's Child. I looked at her. You've got to be kidding me. I wish I was. This is some occult nonsense. Maybe. She pointed at my ultrasound. How many limbs did the doctor see? I pushed the folder away. Get out. Mara, I'm pregnant. I'm scared. My doctor doesn't know what's happening, and you come here with some medieval demon book. It's not medieval. That's the part you're correcting. She grabbed my wrist. Listen to me. Whatever Caleb gives you, stop taking it. I pulled away. Why Caleb? Sienna looked toward the window. Then, back at me. Did he ever take you somewhere in the mountains? My anger disappeared. What? A church? A retreat? A gathering? A memory surfaced. It had been late February. Before I knew I was pregnant, Caleb had taken me to what he called a community dinner outside Burnsville. An old chapel, maybe 30 people, candles, homemade food, music. I remembered an older man blessing us before dinner. Silver hair, deep voice. Everyone called him Reverend Crow. I'd thought it was some rural church Caleb's family knew. We stayed only a few hours. I drank wine. I became unusually tired. Caleb drove us home. I remembered almost nothing after getting into his truck. Sienna watched my face. You went, "How do you know about that place?" Instead of answering, she pointed to the illustration. The thing in that picture ain't supposed to be born. A chill moved through me. What happens? Her eyes lowered toward my stomach. It doesn't get born, Mara. It hatches. I almost threw her out. I should have. Instead, I spent the next 6 hours reading. The photocopies described something called the Weaver. Not a demon exactly, not a god. The accounts were inconsistent. Some called it a spirit. Others described a creature that lived beneath the mountains before Europeans arrived. The stories changed depending on who told them, but one element remained constant. It couldn't reproduce on its own. It needed a human host. The Weaver's child grew inside a woman until it was mature enough to leave. The host never survived. I told Sienna it was folklore. She agreed. Then she asked why my ultrasound looked exactly like the drawing. I didn't have an answer. When Caleb came home, Sienna was gone. I had hidden the folder under the spare bed. Caleb kissed me, asked about my day, made dinner. Then he prepared my tea. I watched him scoop the herbs into the infuser. What is that? He looked up. The tea. What's in it? Same stuff as always. Which is? He named several herbs. I recognized two. The others meant nothing to me. Where did you get it? He smiled. You've been drinking it for weeks. That isn't what I asked. The smile disappeared. A client gave it to me. Which client? Mara. What's going on? I looked at the mug, then at him. Nothing. I poured the tea down the sink when he wasn't looking. For the next 3 days, I watched him. Once you begin suspecting someone you love, every ordinary thing becomes evidence. Caleb came home 30 minutes late. Why? Caleb took his phone into the bathroom. Why? Caleb asked how the baby was feeling. Which baby? Why did he always say baby now instead of babies? Then I noticed his necklace. He'd owned it for years. A small metal pendant I had always assumed was some kind of compass. That morning, lying against his chest, I saw the design differently. 8 narrow lines radiating from a central circle, like legs. I waited until he showered. Then I searched his dresser. Nothing. His office. Nothing. His truck. Nothing. The garage was last. There was a wooden box on the top shelf above his workbench. Locked. I had seen it before. Caleb told me it contained paperwork from his father. I found the key taped beneath a drawer. Inside were 7 Polaroids. 7 women. Different ages. Different places. None smiling. Names were written on the backs. There were bundles of dried herbs. Black thread. A small glass vial containing something that looked like ash. And a photograph, maybe 20 years old. A group of people stood outside the same chapel Caleb had taken me to. I recognized Reverend Silas Crow immediately, much younger. Beside him stood a boy of about 12. Caleb. My hands began shaking. You shouldn't be in here. I turned. Caleb stood in the doorway. For a second neither of us moved. Then his eyes dropped to the photograph in my hand. Where did you get the key? Who are these women? Mara. Who are they? He stepped inside. I backed away. Don't. He stopped. Something changed in his expression. Not anger. Disappointment. Sienna told you. My skin went cold. What? She told you to search my things. How do you know I've spoken to Sienna? Caleb closed his eyes. Because this is what she does. What does that mean? He shut the garage door. I almost screamed. Then he sat down on the floor. Just sat there. Hands where I could see them. My parents belonged to that church. I stared at him. The Covenant of Eight. I said nothing. I grew up there. Reverend Crow. Silas, you know him. I did. I left when I was 19. I held up the Polaroids. Who are these women? People they hurt. They? The Covenant. I laughed once. It sounded hysterical. And you've just been secretly collecting their pictures in our garage, because I've been trying to prove what happened. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted that part of my life dead. I pointed toward my stomach. It's not dead. His face changed. Mara. Sienna showed me something. Of course she did. A drawing. What drawing? The Weaver's Child. For the first time, Caleb looked genuinely frightened. He stood. I backed away again. Do you know what it is? He didn't answer. Caleb. Where is Sienna? Why? Because she's the reason this is happening. I stared at him. Then he reached into the box and removed another photograph. He handed it to me. Children stood outside a long wooden building. I found Sienna in less than 10 seconds. She couldn't have been older than 11. Same dark hair. Same eyes. I looked at Caleb. No, ask her. She told me she knew about the Covenant. Did she tell you she grew up there? She said her parents ... Did she tell you why she became your friend? I couldn't breathe. Caleb lowered his voice. Mara, Sienna didn't meet you by accident. I drove to a motel that night. I didn't tell Caleb where. I didn't tell Sienna either. For the first time in my adult life, I had no one I trusted enough to call. I spread the 7 Polaroids across the bed. Then I started searching the names. The first woman, Holly Reeves, disappeared 11 years earlier, 26 years old. Her car was found near Pisgah National Forest. No body. The second, Dana Weller, disappeared 7 years ago. Her body was discovered months later in an abandoned hunting cabin. The article mentioned an unusual fibrous material at the scene. The third woman was Natalie Cross, found near a riverbank. There was a photograph from the search. I zoomed in. White strands clung to the bushes near the body. Spiderweb. Except there was far too much of it. I searched the remaining names. 3 missing. 2 dead. 1 case sealed. 1 woman supposedly left the country. Then I noticed something else. Pregnancy. Holly's sister told reporters Holly believed she was pregnant. Dana's obituary mentioned an unborn child. Natalie's medical records weren't public, but a comment from her mother said Natalie had been preparing a nursery. I ran to the bathroom and vomited. When I came back, my phone was ringing. Unknown number. I answered. Mar Ellison. Yes, this is Detective Owen Rourke with Buncombe County. I sat down. I'd emailed him 30 minutes earlier after finding his name on one of the old articles. I wasn't expecting you to call. You mentioned Dana Weller? Yes. How do you know that name? I looked at the Polaroids. Someone I know has her photograph. Silence. What kind of photograph? Polaroid. Ms. Ellison, where are you? I didn't answer. He continued. Are you in immediate danger? I don't know. Then assume you are. That sentence made everything real. I told him about the other names. Not Caleb. Not yet. When I finished, Owen was quiet. Then he said, Those women aren't connected publicly. What does that mean? It means some of what you just told me was never released. My hand tightened around the phone. There's something else. What? I think they were all pregnant. Another silence. Longer this time. Finally, who gave you those photographs? I hung up, because someone knocked on my motel door. 3 slow knocks. Then Sienna said, Mara, I know you're in there. I almost didn't open it. Then she said, Caleb knows where you are too. I unlocked the door. Sienna entered and immediately closed the curtains. I shoved the old photograph toward her. You lied to me. She looked at it. No, you never told me you were in that place. I told you my parents were involved. You didn't tell me you were there with Caleb. Her jaw tightened. Because I knew exactly what he'd do if he found out. He says you're the reason this is happening, and I told you he'd say that. How did you meet me? She said nothing. Sienna, college. Why? Because we were assigned to the same dorm. Was that an accident? She looked away. That was enough. I backed away from her. Oh my God, Mara. Listen, you were watching me. At first, the room seemed to tilt. For who? My parents. The Covenant. Yes. I grabbed my bag. She blocked the door. Move. I'm trying to save you. You've been lying to me for 13 years. And Caleb has been sleeping beside you for 4. Move. If I wanted to hurt you, why would I warn you? I stopped. She had me there. Sienna took a breath. I was 11 when that photograph was taken. My parents raised me inside the Covenant. I didn't choose it. Caleb says he left. He never left. How do I know you're not lying? You don't. At least that answer was honest. She pulled out her phone. There's someone you need to meet. Ruth Calder lived 40 miles northeast of Asheville in a house that looked as though the forest had been trying to swallow it for years. She was 67. Gray hair braided down her back. No crystals. No black robes. No mysterious candles. She wore jeans and an old UNC sweatshirt that made me trust her slightly more. Until she looked at my stomach. How far? 14 weeks. Her eyes moved to Sienna. You waited too long. I came as soon as I knew. Ruth ignored her. She asked to see the ultrasound. I handed it over. She studied it for less than a minute, then gave it back. That's not twins. I know. No, you don't. She sat across from me. The old stories call it a child because people needed a word they understood. It isn't a child. What is it? I don't know. That's helpful. I'm not going to invent answers to make you feel better. I liked her even less. She continued, people in these mountains have been telling versions of the Weaver story for generations. The Covenant believes it can bargain with the thing. For what? Good harvest once, healthy livestock, children, money, whatever people want badly enough to become stupid, and it puts that thing inside women. The Covenant does. How? Ruth looked at Sienna. Sienna said nothing. I remembered the chapel. The wine, the missing hours. My stomach turned. Can you remove it? Ruth shook her head. Hospital. Maybe. Anything living can usually be removed. The question is whether removing it ends this. What does that mean? The Covenant doesn't believe the host is just an incubator. They believe the host is part of the ritual. I pressed both hands over my stomach. When? Ruth looked toward the window. 3 nights from now. Why? New moon. I laughed. I couldn't help it, of course, because apparently my life is a horror movie now. Ruth didn't smile. You went to their chapel before you became pregnant. Yes, then that's where it started. How do I stop it? I don't know. Sienna snapped. You said you could help. I said I knew the stories. Then give us something. Ruth stared at her. I can tell her the Covenant thinks it controls the Weaver, and I can tell her people who believe they control old things are usually wrong. Dr. Hart admitted me to the hospital the next morning. She performed another ultrasound. This time Caleb wasn't there. Sienna wasn't either. I had stopped answering both of them. Dr. Hart stared at the monitor. Her face became progressively more confused. Finally, she called another doctor, then another. Nobody used the word twins. The shape was clearer now. 1 central torso, 1 head, 8 limbs. It had grown, far too much in 4 days. Dr. Hart turned off the monitor. I want you to stay here. What's happening? We need additional imaging. Is it alive? She hesitated. Yes. How many heartbeats? She turned the machine back on. 1. Rapid, strong. Then another sound appeared. Beep. Dr. Hart frowned. Beep. Slower. Beep. She moved the probe. The second rhythm vanished. What was that? Probably artifact. Don't do that. She looked at me. Don't give me the easy answer, because you don't know. Her expression softened. You're right. She moved the probe back. The second rhythm appeared again. It wasn't coming from the fetus. Dr. Hart's face went pale. Where is it? She didn't answer. The lights went out. Only for 2 seconds. Emergency power clicked on. The monitor restarted. I looked toward the hallway. Caleb was standing outside the room, watching me. I didn't think. I ran. Sienna answered on the first ring. Where are you? Hospital. Get out. I already am. Come to my cabin. No, Mara. I don't trust you. You shouldn't. That surprised me. But right now you don't have to trust me. You just have to stay away from Caleb. I looked behind me. No sign of him. Send me the address. The cabin was 20 minutes away. When I arrived, Sienna's car was outside. She opened the door before I reached it. Inside. I stepped in. She locked the door. Where is Caleb? I don't know. Why was he at the hospital? Because they're running out of time. Ruth said 3 days. Sienna stared at me. Ruth was wrong. My stomach tightened. What? The growth accelerated. How do you know that? She froze. Only for a second, but I saw it. How do you know? Mara, I backed toward the door. Then I heard an engine outside. Not approaching. Cooling. A vehicle had been parked behind the cabin. I recognized the sound. Caleb's truck. Sienna reached for me. I shoved her away and ran toward the kitchen. There was another door. I went outside. Caleb's truck sat behind the cabin, hidden from the road. Empty. I heard voices beneath me. The cabin had a basement. A small window sat just above ground level. I crouched. Caleb was inside. So was Sienna. No, not Sienna. She was behind me. Then I realized there were stairs inside the cabin and she'd gone down another way. I pressed closer to the window. Caleb said, "She still trusts you." Sienna answered, "Enough." Everything inside me went quiet. Caleb paced across the basement. She shouldn't have gone to the hospital. I couldn't stop her, Anne Rourke. She contacted him. Caleb swore. Sienna lowered her voice. "It doesn't matter. We just need to get her to Crow." My hand covered my mouth. Caleb said, "You told her about Ruth. She needed somewhere to run. And now she thinks you're hunting her." Caleb smiled. "And she thinks you're saving her." Sienna laughed softly. "That's the point." I backed away from the window. A branch snapped beneath my shoe. Silence inside. Then Caleb said, "Mara." I ran. I made it perhaps 50 yards. Pregnant women don't run particularly well through mountain forest. Someone caught me from behind. Sienna, we fell. I hit the ground hard enough to lose my breath. She pinned my shoulders. "I'm sorry." I screamed at her. She was crying. That was the part one hated most. "You were my friend." "I am." "Don't." I didn't know it would become this. 13 years, Mara. 13 years. Caleb reached us. He didn't look angry. He looked exhausted. "We don't have time." I spat at him. He wiped his cheek. "Fair. You did this to me." His eyes lowered to my stomach. Yes, I had imagined hearing that admission. I thought it would make things clearer. Instead it destroyed whatever small piece of hope remained. Sienna helped me stand. I pulled away from her. "Why me?" Neither answered. "Why me?" A new voice came from behind us. "Because of your mother." Reverend Silas Crow stood between the trees. He was older than I remembered from the dinner. Almost 60, white hair, kind face. The kind of man you might ask to hold your place in line at a grocery store. He smiled at me. "Your mother never told you where she was born, did she?" I stared at him. "My mother was born in Tennessee." "Technically true." Silas walked closer. "She was born to the covenant. My mother had died when I was 19. Cancer." There were 1,000 questions I'd never thought to ask her. Silas continued. "She left us when she was 17. No, she was chosen to." I couldn't speak. "But she ran before the right." Sienna looked away. Silas smiled. "We've been waiting a long time for her bloodline to return." I looked at Sienna. "You knew." She said nothing. "You became my friend because of my mother that first, and Caleb." Caleb's face told me before he answered. "Yes, my relationship, my engagement, the house." The pregnancy. 2 of the people I loved most in the world had entered my life because someone had selected me before I even knew their names. That frightened me more than the thing inside my body. A monster could take my life. These people had taken my past. They brought me back to the chapel that night. I remembered it differently, warm, inviting, full of people and food. Now the tables were gone, so were the chairs. Without them, I could see the symbol carved into the wooden floor. 8 lines, 1 center, the same symbol Caleb wore around his neck. There were 12 people waiting. Silas stood in the center. I was placed on a low wooden platform. Nobody tied me down. They didn't need to. Caleb stood beside the door, Sienna beside him. My stomach was moving constantly now. Visible ripples beneath my clothes. Silas began speaking. Not Latin, not some ancient language, English. That almost made it worse. He thanked the weaver, he thanked the host. He spoke about sacrifice, renewal, prosperity. I looked around the room, ordinary people, a dentist, a woman I'd seen working at a bakery, a contractor, an elderly couple, people who probably paid taxes and complained about traffic and watched football on Sundays. People who had decided I was acceptable collateral for whatever they wanted. Then I noticed the floor. The carved symbol wasn't decorative, each line led toward the platform. Black thread had been laid inside the grooves. Thread. I remembered Caleb's box. The Polaroids, the previous women, and something Ruth had said. The covenant thinks it controls the weaver. That didn't mean it did. I looked at Caleb. Did the other women die during the birth? He flinched. Silas stopped speaking. I looked at him. Did they? Silas smiled. You don't need to concern yourself with them. That's not an answer. My stomach twisted violently. I gasped. Sienna took a step toward me. Silas raised his hand. She stopped. I understood. Not everything Sienna had told me was a lie. The dead women, the missing women, the cover-ups. I looked at Caleb. What happened when the ritual failed? He said nothing. Caleb. Silas snapped. Enough. That was my answer. I laughed. Everyone stared. You don't know what you're doing. Silas's face hardened. The covenant has preserved this right for generations. No. I looked at the threads in the floor. You've been killing the hosts when this doesn't work. Nobody spoke. That's why the bodies were hidden. Sienna looked at Caleb. I saw something change between them. Not guilt. Fear. They hadn't known. At least not all of it. Silas continued the prayer. I reached down. My fingers closed around one of the black threads. Silas shouted. I pulled. The thread came free from the groove. Every candle in the chapel went out. Something inside me moved. Not crawling this time. Turning. The entire shape shifted beneath my skin. I screamed. Someone behind me screamed too. Then came a sound from above. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Everyone looked toward the ceiling. Nothing there. Scratch, scratch, closer. Silas whispered something. For the first time that night, he looked frightened. Caleb said, "What is that?" Silas didn't answer. The scratching crossed the ceiling. Fast. Far too fast. Someone ran for the door. It slammed shut before they reached it. Then the screaming started. I don't know what everyone saw. I know what I saw. Threads descending from the darkness. Thin, white, almost invisible. One wrapped around Silas's wrist. He shouted and pulled. Another wrapped around his shoulder. Then 3 more. The thing inside me stopped moving. Completely. It wasn't interested in me anymore. It was listening. To them. To the people calling its name. I tore another black thread from the floor. Then another. Caleb grabbed me. Stop. I hit him. He fell backward. Sienna caught my arm. For a second, we stared at each other. 13 years. Birthdays. Road trips. Breakups. My mother's funeral. The night I told her I was pregnant. Every memory passed between us. Please, she whispered. I didn't know whether she was asking me to stay or forgive her. I shoved her away. She could have grabbed me again. She didn't. I ran. Behind me, Silas Crow screamed. Then something heavy moved across the ceiling. I never looked back. Detective Owen Rourke found me walking barefoot down a mountain road shortly before sunrise. I don't remember calling him. Apparently I had. He said I left a voicemail containing nothing but breathing and the words, "The chapel." Police arrived less than 20 minutes after I escaped. Several Covenant members were arrested. Caleb was found unconscious outside. Sienna was gone. Silas Crow was gone too. There was blood inside the chapel, a lot of it. But not enough to prove anyone had died. There were also white fibers covering portions of the ceiling. The laboratory couldn't identify them. Nobody put that part in the newspapers, Owen told me later. I was taken back to the hospital. Dr. Hart was waiting. The thing inside me was still alive, but something had changed. Its heartbeat was slowing. My blood pressure was collapsing. They operated. I woke almost 11 hours later. Dr. Hart sat beside my bed. The first thing I did was touch my stomach. Flat, bandaged, empty. I started crying, not because I missed it, because for the first time in months, my body felt like mine. Dr. Hart waited. Eventually I asked, "Was it a baby?" She looked down at her hands. "No, what was it?" "I don't know. You saw it?" "Yes." "What did it look like?" She didn't answer. Evelyn. It was the first time I'd ever called her by her first name. She looked at me. I don't know how to describe what we removed in a way that would make sense. "Where is it?" Her eyes moved toward the door. That frightened me. "Where is it?" "It was transferred for examination." "Was." Dr. Hart stood. "I need to get someone." I grabbed her wrist. "Was it alive?" She looked at my hand, then at me. "When we removed it?" "Yes." A long pause. "Yes. And afterward?" She gently pulled her wrist free. "I don't know." That was the last honest answer anyone gave me for months. The official story was much simpler. An extremist religious group, medical abuse, kidnapping, illegal drugs. Several reopened missing person cases. Caleb eventually accepted a plea agreement. He tried to write to me. I never opened the letters. Sienna remained missing. Police found evidence she'd withdrawn cash months before everything happened. Maybe she'd planned to run. Maybe she was still working for the Covenant. Maybe she died in those mountains. I don't know which answer I prefer. Silas Crow was never found. The chapel burned 6 weeks after the raid. Investigators called it arson. No suspect. Ruth Calder disappeared too? Her house was empty when police went to interview her. No signs of struggle. No note. Nothing. Owen stayed in touch. He wasn't supposed to tell me details about the investigation, but sometimes he did anyway. The 7 women from Caleb's box became part of a much larger case. They found more names, more photographs, more pregnancies. Some women survived. Most refused to speak. One woman agreed. She said something that still bothers me. She told Owen that the Covenant wasn't worshiping the Weaver. Not originally. They were afraid of it. The rituals weren't invitations. They were containment. Somewhere along the way, someone decided a thing powerful enough to fear might also be powerful enough to bargain with. That's what people do. We find a locked door and eventually someone decides to open it. I moved away from Asheville. Far away. I sold the house. Changed my phone number. Stopped doing interior design because every time I walked into an old building, I found myself looking at the corners of the ceiling for threads, for movement, for 8-legged shadows. Therapy helped. Time helped more. There were days when I almost believed everything had ended. Then, 7 months after the surgery, Dr. Hart called. I hadn't spoken to her since leaving North Carolina. Her voice sounded wrong. "Mara, I need you to see something." "No, please. I don't want to know. I think you need to." She sent me an image. The first ultrasound. The one where she had told me I was having twins. She had increased the contrast. Marked the heartbeat locations. There was the thing inside me. 1 body, 8 limbs, 1 heartbeat. Then she had circled something else, a tiny distortion near the outer wall of my uterus. What is that? I asked. I thought it was artifact, and now. I reviewed every scan. I waited. It appears in all of them. My hands began shaking. Another heartbeat? Yes. From the baby. No, it wasn't a baby. I'm sorry. What are you saying? Dr. Hart breathed slowly. The second cardiac rhythm wasn't coming from the mass we removed. I stared at the image. Then where was it coming from? Outside the uterine wall? I almost dropped the phone. That's impossible. I know. Did you remove it? Silence? Evelyn, the surgical report lists one specimen. My apartment suddenly felt very quiet. What happened to the second one? We didn't know there was a second one. I looked down at my stomach. The scar had healed, mostly, for several weeks, though I'd been experiencing something I hadn't told anyone. A small twitch beneath my left ribs, always at night, always after 3. I had blamed scar tissue, nerves healing, muscle spasms. Ordinary things, safe things. Mara, I didn't answer. Because something moved, very lightly, just beneath my skin. One point of pressure. Then another, moving upward. I stood completely still. My phone slipped from my hand. Dr. Hart's voice came faintly from the floor. Mara, the pressure stopped beneath my ribs. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then 5 tiny points pressed outward at once. Like fingertips. I looked toward the dark window. My reflection stared back, and behind it, in the corner of the room near the ceiling, something thin and white caught the light. A single thread. I hadn't seen it before. I watched it sway. There were no open windows, no fan running. Nothing that should have made it move. Then another thread lowered beside it. And another. My hand went to my stomach. The thing beneath my skin moved again. This time I didn't scream. I already understood. The covenant had been wrong. Caleb had been wrong. Sienna had been wrong. Even Ruth had been wrong. They all believed the Weaver needed us to bring its children into the world. But maybe that was never what it needed. Maybe it only needed us to carry them somewhere new. And I had carried mine almost 600 miles away. The phone was still on the floor. Dr. Hart kept calling my name. I bent down to pick it up. That was when I noticed something beneath the couch. A small patch of white. At first I thought it was dust. Then it stretched. One thin strand attached to another. And another. A web. Freshly made. I backed toward the door. The movement inside me followed, not randomly. It moved toward the same side of my body as the web. I grabbed the door handle. Behind me came a soft sound. Scratch, 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 from inside the wall. I opened the door and ran. This time, I didn't know where I was running to. I only knew one thing. The first doctor had told me I was having twins. She'd been wrong, but not in the way any of us thought. There had always been 2, we had only removed 1. And the other 1 had been waiting.